Hi there, my name is Richard. I'm here in sunny Thames Ditton to demonstrate the lower Thames sport of punt racing. Here are the boats that we race. They're different from the Oxford and Cambridge boats. They're 2 foot. The Oxford and Cambridge ones tend to be 3 foot. They've got seats and they're more leisurely. These ones are racing punts. They've got a counter on both ends and we stand in the middle to race them. And the side that you stand on is a personal preference. Personally, I stand on the right-hand side. I find it better. But once you've selected a side, it's actually quite difficult to change. Just to demonstrate getting into the boat, we use the pole to steady the boat and we step down into the middle of the boat. For novices, it's easier to have 1 foot either side and you can gain your balance. But when we're racing, we stand facing the side with our foot tucked into the middle knee. It's quite important to be in the middle towards the back. If you come forward too far in the boat, then the nose goes down and you lose the steering. It's really difficult. Before we start, it's important to dip the pole in the water to make sure that it will slide through your hands easily. The punting stroke consists of 3 parts: the throw, the shove, and the recovery. We'll start from the finish with the standard technique called the bucket return. With the pole out in the water behind you, held loosely in the hands, you can use your left hand to throw it forward while your right hand stays loosely around the pole. With practice, you can even use your right hand to dry the water off the pole as it comes through. There's nothing wrong with throwing the pole forward in 2 or 3 shorter throws, although of course in a race you'll get a smoother stroke being able to do it in 1. Towards the end of the throw, as the balance of the pole shifts forward, you want to grip it with both hands and raise it vertical, so that your left hand is just above your shoulder height and your right hand is just above your waist height. And the shoe of the pole is just above the waterline, tucked against the side of the boat and pointing slightly forward. Next, you're effectively going to cross your hands over, throwing the pole down with your higher, left hand, while at the same time reaching up as high as you can with your right. If done correctly, it should be the muscle under your right armpit that aches tomorrow from this stretch. You don't want to grip the pole again until it hits the riverbed, which, if you're on a nice gravel course, you'll be able to hear. Your left hand, having come off the pole as you throw it down, circles round and straight back up to your right, so that both hands are together and touching for the shove. Hopefully the slight forward angle of the throw was judged so that the pole has just come past the vertical as you start to apply the pressure with both hands, giving you the longest possible shove from as high up the pole as you can start, turning your torso as you bend your elbows to bring it across your chest. Taking a gentle half step back with your right foot and pushing it away, finishing the stroke facing backwards. This is called the back shove. You should now be in the right position to start the next recovery throw, and as you stand up to raise the pole vertical, your back foot will naturally follow you forward to where it started. As you throw down and reach up, pretty much all your weight should be on your leading left foot. So that's the general cycle. Throwing forward with the left and up, throw down with the left and reach up with the right. Your left hand circles round to join for a long shove, across the chest, half a step back and stretch behind. Forward with the left and up. Left down, right up, left comes to join, across the chest and back. Forward with the left, left down, right up, left joins, and across the chest. Now once the pole hits the riverbed, you have to start the shove straight away, but you can take a tiny moment to pause before the throw. Check that you're happy with the position of the shoe. Tight to the side, angle slightly forward, and also slightly underneath the boat. And also, at the end of the shove, take a look forward and check that you're happy with the direction of the boat before you start the recovery. So forward with the left and check that you're happy. Left down, right up, left joins, across the chest and back. Then take a look. Forward with the left and pause. Left down, right up, left joins, across the chest and pause.
Yes, you get into a zen state. The sound and feel of the water, how the boat's running, your environment. You've thrown the pole down and it travels through water and you don't know what it'll hit until it's hit it. It could be gravel, which is what you want, which is really hard and you can put a lot of work and weight onto that and the pole will come free. Or you throw it down and there's just a sort of a dull thud and that's mud, so you can't push too hard because your pole will get stuck and you have to leave it behind and pick up the spare. You can only work with what the river bed gives you.
While throwing the pole down slightly ahead of you is the best method once you're underway, it obviously won't work from a standing start. If the pole is too vertical, you'll just move sideways rather than forwards. To start the boat moving, you want to have the pole as low as possible alongside the boat, ideally at about 30 degrees above the water. Similarly, to stop the boat, you need to throw the pole forward alongside the punt at as low an angle as possible. Steering follows the basic principle that the boat will always pivot around its centre, and in a 2-foot you'll get best control by standing with your left foot just behind this point. Whichever way you make the stern of the boat move will then have the opposite effect on the bow. Relatively crude steering adjustments can be made at the end of each stroke with the pole out in the water behind like a rudder, but this creates drag which will slow you down in a race, as well as taking up valuable time when you could be retrieving the pole for your next stroke. Instead, we try to do all the steering during the stroke, and turning one direction is easier than the other. When you throw the pole down, you want to make sure that it's tight alongside the boat, and as well as pointing slightly forward, for maximum control, you also want it pointing slightly underneath the punt. In your brief pause before the throw, you can position your left hand slightly further out from the boat to give you the angle you're after. From this side of the punt, turning right is the easy option. As the pole runs back along the edge of the boat, you can simply pull the pole slightly inwards, levering it against the side of the punt. As you bring the pole across your chest, you'll now find that the shoe of the pole is pointing diagonally out away from the punt, forcing the stern towards you, and hence turning the boat to the right. So, to turn right, you throw down tight to the side and lever into the boat through the shove. Tight to the side and lever in. Turning left is harder, as it means you have to bring the stern of the boat over to your right, which your pole is in the way of. You still start by throwing the pole in tight to the side of the boat and pointing slightly underneath. But this time, as soon as the shoe hits the bottom, you lean out beyond it to create an angle, pushing the riverbed back underneath your stern. This pulls the stern of the boat over towards the pole, turning the boat to the left. So to turn left, you throw down tight to the side, immediately lean out beyond the shoe and push the riverbed under your stern through the shove. Tight to the side and lean out, then angle under the stern. When first practicing, these little alterations left and right may feel like huge overcompensating adjustments. In time, they can be tiny nudges carried out through every bit of the shove in order to approximate a straight line. The most important thing is that whether you're turning right, turning left, or going straight ahead, you always want to be throwing the pole down in exactly the same place, tight to the side of the punt, slightly forward and slightly underneath.
It's the only true sport. It's the most elegant of sports done well that there is going. And it's about the only sport that you will ever gain a true understanding of the river. of what the bottom is, of what the flow is, of everything. You've only got a stick, you've got no oars.
Racing takes place in 2 lanes or stations, separated by a line of buoys. You complete lengths of the course, usually 2 or 4, turning at each end past the large stake in the river called a rypeck, 1 for each station. Races are frequently handicapped so that a less experienced punter gets a head start over the opposition. Each boat has hooks to carry 2 spare poles, 1 on each side, which can be picked up if the pole you're using gets dropped or stuck in the mud. Poles also come in a variety of lengths, and the punter on the outside station will usually want longer poles than their opposition. The rules require each punter to remain on their station and to turn the pecks at each end from outside to in, meaning that you approach the peck on the furthest side from the riverbank and come back out again on the inside of it. Because you always pass the peck on the outside first, the turns at either end of the course are subtly different. Let's first consider how you approach the peck when it's on the side of the boat that you're facing. Unless there are other factors at play, and you'll find that wind, current, depth and bottom can hugely alter your plans. Your best course is to steer very close alongside the outside of the peck and angle slightly inwards. You aim to take your final stroke before the bow reaches the peck and then turn around in the boat as it passes the peck, bring the pole over with you to the outside. Just as the punt finally clears the peck, you stop up on the outside of the boat, i.e. the furthest from the riverbank, by throwing the pole down at a shallow angle. If you've judged your course perfectly then, as well as stopping the boat, this should also nudge the punt over to the inside of the peck, ready for your first long shove, now pointing straight back down the course. If having turned around, you can see that the boat is coming in too much of an angle, then before stopping up, you may wish to straighten up by dabbing the top of the pole in the water to swoosh the bow across. For any turns at the opposite end of the course, you will instead be approaching the peck with it on the other side of the boat. Again, you steer as close to the peck as possible and pointing slightly in towards the riverbank. After taking your final stroke, and as the punt floats past the peck, you spin the pole over so you're still on the outside of the boat, but now facing back towards where you've come from. Just as the punt fully clears the peck, you stop up on the outside of the boat once more, which will hopefully also nudge you over to the inside of the peck, ready for your first long shove back up the course. After the first shove, as the boat starts moving back past the peck, you can lift the pole up and over, back to the right-hand side of your second stroke. A lot of the skill in racing is found in your ability to turn pecks. If you don't make it fully past the peck before stopping up, then you'll obviously lose time trying to manoeuvre yourself around it. Alternatively, you might execute the smoothest turn in the world, but if you're going a long way past the peck to achieve it, then you're volunteering to punt a longer race than your opponent. Once you've got to grips with the basics of the stroke, the steering, the turning of the pecks, the most important tip to master in racing is to keep everything as smooth as possible. In particular, when you draw your body forward again after the shove, any sharp or heavy movement will knock all the momentum out of the boat just as you've got it going its fastest. If you've got a good sense of balance, then that really helps. So anybody that's done a bit of skateboarding or surfing or any of those sort of sports, because it's all about keeping your ankles loose. Doubles races work exactly the same with singles events, but with 2 people in each boat punting in sync with one another. You can choose 2 people who punt the same side, which gives you a bit of a keel on that side of the boat, but you need to be spaced apart, keep the punt level, front and back, and to leave space for the rear punter's throw. Alternatively, as seen here, you can have one person on each side, which allows you both to get closer to the centre of the boat if you wish. But there's a danger that one punter ends up standing on the uphill side, which can feel unsteady. There is no change in the stroke technique, except now only the person at the rear of each leg is doing the steering. This is especially important if the punters are spaced further apart, as attempts to steer from the front of the boat will not produce the right results. At the Peck, it is common for the leading punter to call the last stroke, and for the other punter, once the boat has passed the Peck, to call the throwdown, to keep everything in sync. If one of the two punters is less experienced at steering, then it is possible to swap places while running in past the Peck, i.e. between the last stroke and stopping up. If you want to try something more nimble, there are the best and best races where entrants compete to be the best punter in the best possible boat. These punts would originally have been custom built to suit the owner's specific size and weight. They are much narrower than the 2-foots, but once you've got the knack of staying upright and dry, the technique is otherwise much the same. Throw forward with the left, up and pause, left down, right up, left joins, across the chest and back shove. Steering is the same as a 2-foot, with the added bonus that a certain amount of directional movement can be achieved with the feet, bending at the ankle, any time that the pole is in contact with the riverbed. Much like a bicycle, best boats are more stable the faster they are moving. One trick to balancing when not moving fast, including when turning around in the boat at a Peck, is to use the vertical pole as a third leg before setting off again. We hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've never tried punt racing yourself, perhaps we've inspired you to come down to one of the clubs and give it a go.
It's just an amazing thing to have access to these beautiful boats that you can get out and get in touch with nature, community spirit, people coming together having fun. It's just a really, really lovely thing to do. So if you have access to facilities like this, I would say grab it with both hands.
Please find out more at punting.org.uk.